What if I told you that the way Filipinos see beauty today, what we call maganda, leading lady material, or even classic Filipina features, was shaped decades before most of us were even born? Long before social media trends and celebrity filters, a group of legendary actresses quietly built the foundation of what became our national standard of beauty. But who were these women? And how did they gain so much influence that their faces, styles, and even personalities defined entire generations? Some dominated the screen with Hollywood-style elegance. Others shattered long-standing expectations and forced audiences to rethink what Filipina beauty could be. And a few sparked rivalries so intense that fan groups were still arguing about them years later.
Mahal ko si Karen. Fritz.
But before we dive into the story of these queens and the legacy they left behind, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of our future uploads. Because once you understand how these icons shaped our beauty standards, you'll never watch old Pinoy films the same way again. To understand how the queens of old-school Pinoy cinema reshaped beauty standards, we have to go back to the very beginning. Back to a time when Filipino film was still finding its identity. And that journey starts with one undeniable influence: old Hollywood. After World War II, American movies flooded local theaters. And suddenly, Filipinos weren't just watching glamorous stars, they were learning from them. Studios in Manila saw how audience members admired Hollywood icons, and they realized something important. Beauty could be manufactured. It could be polished, taught, framed under bright lights, and sold as the ideal. That's when the early Pinoy leading lady prototype was born. Fair skin, soft curls, delicate features, and an almost porcelain-like glow became the blueprint.
A little bit, a little right, makes Pinay healthy wet and wet.
It wasn't just preference. It was a system. And no one embodied this era more perfectly than Gloria Romero. Gloria was everything the era wanted: refined, mestiza, gentle in appearance but captivating on screen. Her elegance wasn't loud. It was graceful, almost floating. Directors framed her like a diamond. Perfectly lit, perfectly styled, perfectly groomed. She became the standard that other actresses were expected to match. If a young starlet walked into a studio audition in the 1950s, people compared her to Gloria, sometimes openly, sometimes in whispers.
Biday, mari ba makabisita mamayang gabi?
Pwede.
But the power of this era wasn't just in the actresses, it was also in the machinery behind them. Studios controlled everything: hair, wardrobe, public image, and even how actresses smiled in publicity photos. The goal was simple: create women who looked like living Hollywood posters. And for a while, that formula worked. Filipinos embraced the fantasy, and the image of the ideal beauty became almost untouchable. Yet beneath that polished surface, something interesting was brewing. Audiences were starting to crave something more than perfection. They wanted charm, personality, and a face that felt closer to home. And that quiet shift would lead to an entirely new type of leading lady. One who didn't rely on Hollywood mimicry to win hearts. But before that happened, an unexpected contrast emerged, and it completely changed the game. That quiet shift away from Hollywood perfection didn't explode overnight, but it started with a surprising contrast. As audiences grew used to the polished elegance of mestiza queens, another kind of leading lady stepped into the spotlight. Softer, warmer, and far more approachable, she didn't float like a Hollywood star. She felt familiar. And no one represented this new charm better than Nida Blanca.
Tayo ni Naning, matagal nagsama niya, ano lang?
Ay, oo, matagal.
Nida wasn't styled to appear untouchable. Instead, she radiated a sweetheart glow that made people feel like they already knew her. She had an effortless smile, lively energy, and a humor that didn't rely on glamour. Instead of playing unreachable goddesses, she portrayed roles that showed everyday Filipina warmth, bright, relatable, and full of heart. This created a fascinating divide in Pinoy cinema. On one side were the regal mestiza beauties shaped by studio machinery. On the other were actresses like Nida, whose appeal came from relatability. For the first time, audiences had two very different types of leading ladies to admire: the glamorous muse and the girl next door. And that contrast did more than just entertain people. It sparked early forms of fan camps. Viewers debated which type of beauty felt more authentic, which one embodied the real Filipina spirit, and which one deserved the spotlight more. These weren't vicious rivalries yet, but they planted the seeds of the passionate fan culture Pinoy cinema would later become known for. What made this era so impactful was how it broadened the idea of beauty. Filipinos started to realize that charm didn't have to look a certain way. It didn't need porcelain features, dramatic cheekbones, or Hollywood curls. It could be found in laughter, in personality, in the way an actress lit up a scene, not through perfection, but through genuine appeal. This shift opened the door for more diverse faces and styles. And it didn't take long before a new kind of star emerged. One whose presence was so striking that people compared her to one of the world's biggest Hollywood icons. Because the next queen would redefine glamour entirely. And she did it with a face the whole country couldn't stop talking about. As Filipino audiences welcomed the girl-next-door charm of Nida Blanca, the balance of beauty in Pinoy cinema seemed to be shifting. But just when people thought they had figured out what a Filipina leading lady looked like, a new force entered the scene. One so visually striking that she reset the bar all over again. That force was Amalia Fuentes. If Nida was relatable warmth, Amalia was pure cinematic electricity. The moment she appeared on screen, everything felt sharper. Her eyes, her brows, her features that carried this strong international aura. It didn't take long for fans and newspapers to call her the Elizabeth Taylor of the Philippines, a comparison that wasn't just flattery. It reflected how truly different she looked from anyone else at the time.
Sinira mo aking buhay!
Amalia brought back the glamour of the mestiza era, but in a completely new, bolder form. Her beauty wasn't the gentle porcelain type associated with earlier stars. It was confident, intense, and commanding, the kind that made casting directors redesign entire movie roles just to match her presence. Studios saw in her an opportunity to revive the high glamour template, but with a modern twist. And the public? They couldn't get enough. Of course, with that kind of attention came whispers. Rumors spread about comparisons between her and other actresses. Some said she was too strong. Others claimed she looked too foreign. But the talk only amplified her mystique. Whether people adored her or felt threatened by her rise, everyone had an opinion, and that made her even more magnetic.
Mahal ko si Karen. Fritz,
Her impact extended beyond posters and movie screens. Women copied her makeup, her hair, even her signature brows. Men saw her as the new ideal. And the industry realized that Filipina beauty didn't have to fit just one mold. It could be bold, sharp, and powerful without losing its cultural identity. But even with her massive influence, the evolution of beauty didn't stop there. Because soon, another queen would rise. One who brought a completely different kind of presence, blending elegance with a warmth so strong it earned her a title no one else could claim. And that woman would be crowned the Queen of Philippine movies. Amalia Fuentes may have set a new bar with her bold international aura, but the evolution of Filipina beauty didn't stop at intensity and glamour. Because shortly after, another woman stepped into the spotlight with a presence so graceful, so naturally regal, that audiences didn't just admire her. They adored her. This was Susan Roces, the woman who would eventually be crowned the Queen of Philippine movies. Where Amalia had sharp, commanding beauty, Susan embodied a softer kind of elegance, the type that didn't need dramatic lighting or fierce angles to stand out. Her features were gentle yet striking, her aura both refined and comforting. There was something undeniably Filipina about her, but with a timeless polish that felt almost royal. She wasn't just beautiful, she was beloved. Studios immediately recognized the power of her appeal. They crafted roles that showcased her innocence, warmth, and quiet sophistication. Posters showed her with bright, dreamy eyes, often styled in classic, flowing looks that enhanced her mestiza softness. Her public image was carefully protected, always poised, always gracious, always the nation's sweetheart. And audiences embraced this with open arms.
Ayon sa mga naiwan dito, nilibot niya itong bahay namin.
But beneath that polished exterior, something interesting was happening in the industry. Susan's popularity solidified a new version of the beauty standard, one that blended approachability with elegance. She wasn't the Hollywood mimic of earlier decades, nor the intense sculpted glamour of Amalia. She represented a balanced ideal, refined, sweet, and deeply rooted in Filipino sensibilities. Her rise proved something important. Beauty didn't need to be extreme to be iconic. It could be subtle, gentle, and filled with heart. And for years, she became the gold standard for what a leading lady should look like. Yet, while Susan Roces shaped the nation's vision of grace, another transformation was brewing beneath the surface. The next wave of actresses wouldn't rely solely on softness, glamour, or classic mestiza appeal. They were about to bring in something entirely different: energy, boldness, independence, and a modern spark that the country had never seen before. Because the next queen to rise wouldn't just change beauty standards, she would redefine what it meant to be a superstar. Susan Roces may have perfected the image of regal, graceful beauty, but as the 60s and 70s rolled in, a new kind of star emerged. And she was nothing like the queens before her. Gone were the days when beauty alone shaped a leading lady's destiny. This time, audiences wanted fire, personality, and a kind of presence that didn't rely on soft elegance or Hollywood mimicry. Enter Vilma Santos. Vilma didn't fit neatly into the existing beauty templates. She wasn't the porcelain mestiza, nor the demure sweetheart, nor the intense international-type beauty. Instead, she brought in something entirely fresh: energy. Her charm wasn't silent or understated, it was dynamic, expressive, and full of life. She moved differently, she spoke differently, she felt different, and Filipinos connected with that immediately. Directors loved her because she didn't just pose for the camera, she took over scenes. Her eyes carried emotion, her body language told stories, and her performances had this magnetic authenticity that made people forget about rigid beauty rules. For the first time, an actress was proving that charisma could compete with and even overshadow traditional standards. But with that rise came conversations. Some whispered that she didn't fit the classic leading lady look. Others argued that her appeal made her even more modern, more accessible, and more in tune with what the new generation wanted. Instead of weakening her image, the mixed reactions strengthened it. Vilma wasn't here to fit into a mold, she was here to break it. Her success reshaped how Filipinos viewed beauty in cinema. Suddenly, uniqueness mattered, personality mattered, talent mattered. Vilma proved that you didn't need to resemble Hollywood stars or adopt delicate mestiza aesthetics to become an icon. You needed presence. and she had it in abundance. And yet, even with Vilma redefining modern appeal, the industry was about to face an even bigger disruption. Because soon, someone would rise who challenged every beauty rule. Someone who didn't fit the old standards at all, yet still became one of the greatest stars the country had ever seen. She was about to spark a cultural revolution, one that would split the nation in two. Vilma Santos may have shattered the mold, proving that charisma and talent could redefine a leading lady. But the real earthquake in Filipino beauty standards came from someone even more unexpected. Someone whose very presence challenged the entire system. And her rise didn't just shift public opinion, it split the nation. That someone was Nora Aunor. Unlike the mestiza queens before her, Nora did not enter the industry with the traditional leading lady look. She had darker skin, humble beginnings, and features far from the Hollywood-inspired ideals that dominated early Pinoy cinema. But what she did have was something no standard could measure: raw, undeniable talent. The kind of presence that didn't rely on styling or lighting, because her emotional depth carried every scene she walked into.
Ang sabi po niya, darating daw po ang araw.
Early on, people didn't know what to make of her. She wasn't the industry's usual pick. But as soon as she opened her mouth to sing, and as soon as audiences felt the weight of her acting, everything changed. Suddenly, beauty standards that had ruled the country for decades began to crack. People saw themselves in her. They saw authenticity. They saw a Filipina who looked like someone they might meet in real life, yet carried a star power that felt almost mythical. And that's when the frenzy began. Rumors spread that producers didn't know how to package her at first. Some said old studio executives doubted whether audiences would embrace a leading lady who didn't have mestiza features. But those doubts only fueled her supporters. As Nora rose, the fan culture surrounding her became legendary. Noranians passionately defended her, while Vilmanians insisted their idol represented modern charisma. These two camps clashed everywhere, from radio shows to newspaper columns, creating one of the most intense fan rivalries in Philippine history. Nora didn't just challenge beauty standards, she redefined them. She proved that the Philippines could celebrate Morena beauty, soulful eyes, and emotional depth as much as mestiza glamour. Her success was a cultural shift so massive that even today, it's still discussed, analyzed, and admired. But the revolution didn't end with her. Her rise opened the doors for actresses whose beauty was more expressive, more natural, and more grounded in real emotion. And one of the first to carry that torch was a young star whose presence felt effortlessly modern, without even trying. Nora Aunor's rise didn't just break the old beauty standards. It shook the industry so deeply that a new style of leading lady began to emerge. Suddenly, it wasn't enough to look polished or glamorous. Audiences wanted actresses who felt real. Women who didn't need dramatic lighting or flawless makeup to shine. And this shift opened the door for a new wave of stars who brought a more natural, expressive kind of beauty to the screen. One of the brightest among them was Hilda Koronel. Hilda wasn't the kind of star who relied on heavy styling or exaggerated elegance. Her beauty felt effortless, soft, expressive, and grounded. There was something about her eyes, the way they conveyed emotion without trying, that captivated audiences. She could play complex roles with honesty, and directors loved how naturally she fit into the grittier, more socially aware films of the 70s and 80s. This was the era of Lino Brocka and Ishmael Bernal, where films explored real Filipino struggles. And Hilda's look, paired with her emotional depth, perfectly matched the tone of these stories. She represented a beauty that didn't scream for attention. Instead, it drew you in with quiet confidence and authenticity. Because of stars like her, a new standard formed. one that didn't rely on mestiza features or glamorous styling. Beauty became more nuanced. Audiences started valuing expressiveness, emotional truth, and natural charm. It was the kind of beauty you didn't see on posters, but felt deeply while watching a scene unfold.
Okay, babaguhin kong tanong. She thinks she's in love with you. Is that it, huh?
Rumors at the time hinted that some studios weren't sure how to market this new wave of actresses. They were different, less polished, harder to fit into traditional molds. But audiences embraced them anyway. And this acceptance pushed the industry to diversify even more. This shift didn't just broaden what beautiful meant, it expanded the kinds of stories that could be told. And soon, another actress would rise who embodied this new wave in an entirely different way. Loud, confident, and filled with charismatic energy that made her instantly iconic. Because the next queen wasn't just expressive, she was unforgettable. Hilda Koronel helped usher in a new era of natural, expressive beauty. But the transformation of the Filipina leading lady didn't stop there. As the 80s gained momentum, audiences were drawn towards something even more dynamic. They wanted a star who wasn't delicate or quietly emotional, but someone who felt alive, unpredictable, and energetic. Someone who reflected the fast-changing spirit of the times. And that's where Maricel Soriano burst into the spotlight. Maricel wasn't crafted to be ethereal or statuesque. She didn't glide across the screen like the classic mestiza queens, nor did she embody the solemn, dramatic presence of the earlier natural beauties. Instead, she carried a charisma that was loud, quick-witted, and incredibly human. She danced, she laughed, she argued, she cried, and she did it all with such authenticity that people felt like they were watching a friend, not a distant celebrity. Her beauty wasn't defined by perfection, it was defined by personality. She had expressive eyes, sharp comedic timing, and a presence that could switch from intense drama to chaotic comedy in seconds. This versatility made her one of the most relatable stars of her era. Women saw themselves in her. Flaws, emotions, humor, all of it. Men admired her because she felt real, not sculpted. And directors loved her because she could carry any scene with pure, undeniable talent. Rumors floated around that some producers initially struggled with where to place her in the industry. She didn't fit the classic beauty categories. Too energetic to be the demure sweetheart, too charmingly chaotic to be the porcelain leading lady. But audiences proved them wrong. Maricel didn't need a category. She was the category. Her success reshaped beauty in a different way. She normalized the idea that a leading lady could be funny, sharp, expressive, and unapologetically herself. She built a bridge between the raw naturalism of the 70s and the bold, personality-driven stars that would follow in the decades ahead. And as the 80s transformed into the 90s, a new icon would rise. One whose soft charm and polished appeal shaped an entirely different vision of beauty for an entirely new generation. Because the next queen wouldn't just be a star. She would be a phenomenon. Maricel Soriano proved that relatability, humor, and raw personality could redefine what a leading lady looked like. But just as she was reshaping the landscape with her energetic charm, the industry was preparing to crown someone whose appeal worked in an entirely different way. Soft, elegant, polished, and almost impossibly comforting. This next star would capture the heart of an entire generation with a beauty that felt safe, warm, and aspirational. Enter Sharon Cuneta, the megastar. Sharon's rise marked a new chapter in the evolution of Filipina beauty. Unlike the intensity of Amalia Fuentes or the bold charisma of Maricel, Sharon embodied a clean, wholesome look that resonated deeply with the growing middle class of the 80s and 90s. Her beauty wasn't intimidating or unreachable. It felt familiar, like someone you could talk to, laugh with, or trust. Yet at the same time, she carried a polished aura that made her glow on screen.
We had so much fun in the interview, and if you play it again in the interview and during the shoot.
What made Sharon stand out wasn't just her looks, it was the entire package. Her soft features, gentle voice, and relatable personality blended with a refined, almost effortless elegance. She didn't need to be loud or mysterious. She won audiences through sincerity. And this sincerity became a template that many young actresses would later try to emulate. But behind the scenes, talk circulated. Some reports claimed that studios carefully managed her image to counter the rising wave of bolder, more unconventional beauty types. Others said her roles were specifically tailored to enhance her wholesome, ideal daughter appeal. Whether true or exaggerated, one thing was certain: audiences adored her. Sharon didn't just set trends, she became the trend. Her films defined an entire era, shaping fashion, makeup, and even how young Filipinas carried themselves. She represented a beauty that felt attainable yet aspirational, simple yet iconic. And for years, that template guided casting decisions and shaped the way leading ladies were presented. But as time moved forward, the industry was on the verge of another shift. Because a new generation was coming, one that embraced diversity, individuality, and unique charm in ways old studios never imagined. And the next wave of stars would push Filipina beauty standards into territory that was broader, bolder, and more inclusive than ever before. With every decade, every rivalry, and every breakout star, Filipina beauty standards kept evolving, shaped not by one face, but by a long line of women who dared to redefine what it meant to be a leading lady. From Hollywood-inspired mestizas to natural, expressive talents, from charismatic icons to polished megastars, each era added a new layer to the story. And now, looking back, it's clear that these queens didn't just entertain the nation. They rewrote how Filipinos saw beauty, confidence, and identity. Their influence still lingers in today's films, teleseries, and even online trends. But as modern audiences embrace diversity more than ever, one powerful question remains: who will shape the next chapter of Filipina beauty? Because if history has shown us anything, it's that one actress, one unexpected star, can shift the entire landscape. If you enjoyed this deep dive into old-school Pinoy cinema, don't forget to like the video. Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an upload.